The Ask the Experts Theater at CSEMP Edge is sponsored by Gaines.
My name is Susan Lacefield, and I'm the executive editor of Supply Chain Xchange, which is CSEMP's official publication. You should have received a copy in your welcome packet, so take a look for that. Today we will be introducing this year's award winners, and then we'll have a panel discussion with them where they can have a chance to speak to us about leadership topics, career development, and the major issues facing supply chain leaders and managers today. But first, I want to take a few minutes just to thank our amazing sponsor, Gain Systems, for their support in recognizing these amazing women. Gain Systems is focused on helping supply chain leaders achieve resilience and agility, and they do that by delivering rapid, measurable improvements through smarter, unified decision-making. They focus on outcomes, not just technology. So by leveraging AI and advanced analytics as tools to solve the right problems at the right time. Their approach empowers customers to fulfill their promises by transforming complexity into opportunity and driving real business results. To help present the awards, I am joined by Gain Systems Vice President of Industry Solutions, Amber Sally.
Thanks, Susan, and thanks for those kind words about Gains. I'm glad to see all of you here. I see some familiar faces in the audience, and glad to see we have some allies joining us as we celebrate the accomplishments of these three women. So today we are honoring exceptional women who have made remarkable contributions to the supply chain profession. Supply chain management requires strategic thinking, innovative problem solving, and effective leadership. And these women have consistently demonstrated their commitment to excellence. Their dedication, passion, and accomplishments have not only advanced the supply chain landscape, but have also served as an inspiration to countless professionals. I just want to share a little short story. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and my kids don't know what I do, right? My kids are 8 and 5 or 8 and 6, and they don't know what supply chain is. Well, I was telling my daughter how I was going to a women in supply chain dinner in Chicago, and she says, "Oh, I want to come too." And I thought, yeah, that's right. You're already getting into this world of wanting to get to know other women who do something similar to you. Unfortunately, I told her that she couldn't come, and she was pretty sad about that. But thanks to these three women, their accomplishments, they're paving the way for my daughter to be able to successfully have a career in supply chain whenever she is older.
Thanks, Amber. My daughter is uninterested in supply chain, unfortunately. Our first award winner is Sarah Chu Kirby, fresh from today's main panel discussion. Sarah is the Global Supply Category Lead for Haircare at Estée Lauder Companies. And prior to that, she was the Executive Director for Global Supply Chain Strategy at Estée Lauder, where she spearheaded the development and execution of corporate supply chain strategies and led pivotal strategic initiatives. Sarah has over 15 years of experience at Estée Lauder, where she has moved through various roles within the supply chain, demonstrating her experience and leadership. And a fun fact about Sarah is, I believe you're a trained neuroscientist, is that correct? And that you started your career in investment banking equity research.
Yes, it's a little bit of an unconventional path into the supply chain, but excited that my diverse range of experiences has allowed me to get to where I am today, and I think it's a strength. So thank you.
Our second award winner is Kathy Fulton. As the executive, give it up for her. As the executive director of the American Logistics Aid Network, Kathy leads the organization in facilitating donations of logistics services and equipment to enable the delivery of millions of dollars worth of humanitarian aid. Kathy served as the organization's Director of Operations from 2010 to her promotion in 2014. Her passion is the intersection of supply chain and emergency management, focusing on the critical role that supply chain professionals play in disaster relief.
And last but certainly not least, we are honoring Kristi Montgomery, who is the Vice President of Innovation, Research, and Development at Kenco Logistics Services. Kristi leads in the Kenco Innovation Lab, where she spearheads the development of cutting-edge solutions. But she's really known for leading cross-functional teams and helping to cultivate and develop high-performing supply chain talent. She has the reputation for being a visionary executive and an innovation catalyst, with over 30 years of experience driving supply chain transformation and growth.
Right. So please join me in one loud round of applause for these three exceptional women. Yeah.
We're going to give a few minutes for Amber to safely exit the stage. So I'm going to move the microphone over here so I can see our panelists. So Sarah, Kathy, and Kristi, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought we could start off the conversation by if you could give us a little bit of insight into your current position and what a typical day in the life is like for you. So maybe Sarah, if you could start off and we can work our way down.
Sure. So I'm currently in supply planning for Haircare. And so it's operational day to day. And there's always, some fire going on somewhere that needs to be addressed. And that's part of the excitement of it. And it's usually a fire that's actually good for the company. A customer has dropped in a very large unexpected order, or a customer that you weren't expecting has placed an order. So it's a challenge, and we're really good at responding really quickly and getting the team together really quickly to address what we need to do to try to satisfy our customers and consumers, because our strategy is very consumer and customer oriented. When you're making prestige and luxury cosmetics and skincare, makeup, hair care, fragrance products, we want to make sure that customer is getting what they need exactly when they need it.
Great. And Kathy, I know there's no typical day in the life for humanitarian aid and emergency relief, but you could just give us.
Yeah, when Sarah's talking about virtual fires, I think about the literal fires that our organization tends to deal with. So you're right, there is no typical day. But for me, it spans really a lot of connecting. Our whole job in disaster, our whole job actually for the supply chain community is to be that connector between the business community, the nonprofit community, and government, specifically around supply chain concerns for disaster relief. So a typical day, if there is one, is going to involve conversations with all of those constituents, and then helping to make sure that disaster survivors, whatever they need, are able to express their needs through the nonprofit organizations they work with. And then we're trying to just figure out how to fulfill that for them, how to get those resources to people. That means knowledge sharing, it means education, it means GIS, it means a lot of different things, but all in the name of using supply chain for good.
Excellent. And then, Kristi, what is a day in the life like of an innovation catalyst? Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little like Kathy. There's no typical day.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sarah is putting out the virtual fires, and Kathy is trying to put out the literal fires, and I'm trying to cause the fires. So that's my job. I spend a lot of my time doing strategic workshopping with our larger customers around driving an innovation roadmap for them. What does that 2 to 3 year look into the future look like for them? But I also spend a lot of my time trying to break things. So emerging technologies, we bring them into our lab, we test them, we pilot them, we put them through their paces, and then we determine if they're really viable for our set of clients, 200 or so clients, and trying to custom tailor those solutions and then partner with those vendors that are viable. How do we then take them to the next level and make them ultimately valuable for our customer base? So there is no typical day, but it's a lot of fun what I get to do. So
Great. So if we could now take a look back at the career path that brought you to where you are today, have there been certain people or roles or experiences that have helped shape your current career. And maybe we can switch things up by starting with Kristi and working back towards Sarah.
Sure. So I started my career as a technologist, so in the IT field. That's what I went to school for, and then was degreed in business management. So I always knew I wanted to lead in the tech field. Supply chain was an accidental happenstance for me. I got a number of job offers coming out of college, and there was this company called Kenco, which was a little small company not far from where I lived, and I thought, well, that sounds interesting. That's different. Let's go do that. And I remember our founding father telling me that computers were a fad and they weren't going to last very long. So kind of missed the mark on that one. But I've grown in my career leading, first of all, kind of the delivery aspect of IT, pioneering, setting up our first geographically diverse network, leading compute and delivery for the IT department. And then as I was promoted into the senior leader role in IT, that's where I was able to pioneer a revenue generation model. So we became not a black hole of money in IT. We became actually revenue generating. I think our current business structure, every department in the world hates me for that, but it's okay. I don't live in IT anymore, so they get to deal with the remnants of that. So then as that progressed and we grew as a company, most of you know, and I'm sure you're this way, your IT department becomes the complaints department. You don't call them in the morning when your computer comes on and it works great and say, hey, thanks, my computer worked great this morning. But if it doesn't, we hear about it at 3 a.m. So I kind of wanted to move into something more interesting and was given the opportunity to pioneer innovation in the 3PL space. And so our leadership had the forethought to give me that opportunity. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am today. But I will say there are 2 or 3 really key leaders that led to where I am today in our company. And the first I would say is our former CEO, Gary Mayfield, who had the trust in me to say, I'm going to promote her into this senior leader in IT role and see how she can transform our company. And so was an amazing leader and really appreciated his support and just driving to the future. And then coming behind him, our chief operating officer, former, was Andy Smith, and he was a phenomenal leader, could line people up behind him and march into the Potomac if that's what he told you to do, because he was awesome. But he was always extremely supportive and would get his operations on board with whatever it was that we needed to do from a technology and IT perspective. And then pass that torch along to our chief administrative officer, who currently works at Kenco, Gary Mayfield's son, Scott. And he was very supportive and instrumental in recognizing the opportunity with innovation at Kenco and saying, okay, let's take a flyer and see what happens. And 10 years later and $200 million for our customers later, we've built our reputation in the industry as Kenco as the innovation leader. And so I've had some amazing supportive leaders who've allowed me to be creative and to take these problem solving and strategic thinking skills and really apply them to our customer base. So I've been very blessed.
And Kathy, if you want to talk about your career path, that'd be great.
Yeah, I also have arrived at this position in a non-traditional fashion. I went to school for math and computer science, so Kristi's old job, before she did innovation, I did a very similar job for Saddle Creek Logistics, 3PL. And then they were working with this nonprofit organization back in 2008, and I kind of got voluntold that I was going to help with a project. And that turned into a couple of years as a volunteer, a couple of years as a loaned executive. And then when our founding president was unfortunately killed in an accident, I got, kind of a battlefield promotion to lead the organization. And so when I think back about like some of the people who have influenced me and helped me in my career, I obviously have to talk about Jock Menzies and just who he was as an incredible mentor and an incredible friend to everybody in the industry. and I could leave it there, but I'm also going to talk about this lady named Mary Ann, who supervised me when I was in college and was on my work study program. And so I worked in the math department. Everyone was terrified of Mary Ann. If you needed a schedule change, if you needed something, you had to go see Mary Ann, and she was terrifying. She also taught me about excellence, and she taught me about making sure that I was doing my work in such a way that that I would not look back on it and feel bad about the job that I had done. So I'm just gonna leave it there, because I think that it brings together both sides, the empathy and the love and the excellence that are required to do the work that we do.
Great. And Sarah, if you can give us some insights into your path to where you are now.
Sure. If you look at my resume on paper, it looks like I'm jumping into different jobs for which I have no prior experience. And that's pretty much true. And so, what does that mean about me? Well, it means that I have a lot of different interests, and that's very true. It also means that I am, I've started to understand what I like to do and what I'm really good at doing, and figuring out how those transferable skills can be applied to different industries and different jobs. But I also have to say that I've also been fortunate to have these amazing mentors and sponsors at the Estée Lauder companies over the years. And there's a really important difference between what a mentor and what a sponsor are. And it's important to know what those differences are. Mentors can turn into sponsors, and they're there to coach you on the day-to-day and hear your complaints and whatnot. And your sponsors are opening the doors for you to step into these new roles, and convince the leadership team to take a chance on you. And so that's a very important part of how I've been able to go from job experience to job experience in seemingly, abstract, kind of unconventional ways. And, I've really enjoyed it. I think, during, during the Great Recession this is going way back now, to the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, I was working in investment banking, and I was, it was a time of good self-reflection. The markets were crashing, banking was going in another direction that nobody had seen in forever. And it was a good time for me to pause and think about, is this something I want to keep doing, I decided that I wanted to go into industry. And so I made a target list of all these companies that I would love to work for. And that's how I got started at Estée Lauder, is just making that list and being persistent, looking at any kind of job that I think I could remotely be doing and applying to those jobs. So, I'm here to say that it does work over time, and it's a combination of you going bottoms up and showing how versatile you can be as an employee and a leader, and combined with leadership support from the top to recognize your strengths and say, I want to take a chance on Sarah and do that. So that's
a great
little
story
bit of how I've gotten here. Yeah.
That's a really great story. And it's a good segue into my next question, which is about leadership. Since this is an award recognizing your leadership efforts, I was wondering if you could describe to the audience, what is your leadership style, and how did that style kind of formulate over the years? Like, what felt format? So maybe, Kathy, we could start with you.
Chaotic. I don't know. My team is sitting in the back, so you may want to ask them. No, I would like to think that my leadership style is collaborative. Speaking of other mentors, I mentioned Jock, but I'm also going to talk about my dad for just a second. And my dad was a college professor, and my dad saw everyone for who they are and not the job that they did. And I'd like to think that my leadership style is the same way, in that I have to talk with everyone from, CEOs and governors and, people like that, all the way down to, not down, that's the wrong word, across the spectrum to disaster survivors who have just lost everything, right? And so seeing people's humanity, I think allows us to humanize people, right? We see their humanity, but it also allows us to lead with humility and be collaborative. We're not seeing ourselves as better than anyone. So I'll leave it there.
Great. And Kristi, maybe if you could talk a little bit about your leadership style.
Yeah. So I would classify myself as a servant leader. And part of that comes from my faith. And part of that comes from the examples that I've had before me in the company. So for those of you who don't know, my entire career has been at Kenco. And I'm very blessed because of that. I've had some great examples of that servant leadership. And so what that means to me is there's not a thing that I will ask my team to do that I'm not willing to do myself. And so I can remember some of those really rough startups in the IT space where my team was having to work through the night. And I was there in the trenches with them, even if it meant all I could do was bring pizza at 3 a.m. Didn't matter. I was there, and they saw that. And so I'm a people connector and a relationship builder. That's who I am as a person. And so that just bleeds over into my leadership style. And so when I was still in the IT group, the company brought in an external consultant to do an assessment of our entire IT organization, and lots of things came out of that. We're not perfect. Obviously, we had some great things and we had some things we need to improve on. But what she said at that time to our senior leadership was, I promise you, those people will follow her to hell and back. And so no matter what, they'll accomplish what you need them to accomplish because they will go with her into it. And so to me, that meant everything because that means I have treated my people right and they will follow me and they will do what I need them to do. And so to me, being that servant leader, willing to go where they go and do what they do, but also willing to take a step up and say, listen, guys, I know this is hard and I know you don't like it and I know this is not what we want to do, but this is where we're going, and going with them, I think is the foundation of how I lead my team.
Thank you. And Sarah, how would you talk about your leadership style?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the panel before, but I think first and foremost, it's important to see your employees as people first. And I'm in a new role now in supply planning, and I'm spending a lot of time getting to know my teams, and what motivates them, what do they like to do outside of work, what kinds of family situations, are they coming into work with? Because I really want to understand, where are people's mental energies. A lot of time, we try to think about managing your time, but I'm really also thinking about how do we manage energy. And, if somebody is really just tied up with, something personal, the best decision may be, give them the day off and just say, okay, go take a break and address whatever you need to do and then come back. So it's shaped into, my thinking as a leader to say, you got to be tough on the problems, but soft on the people, to really accommodate the variety of energy, feeling there's just things going on all the time. And so that's part of it. I would say I'm also very collaborative, and I really believe in understanding what people's strengths are and leveraging the strengths. Yeah, I heard this story at a work town hall where, you are looking at, a soccer team and, your defense players are really good at playing defense. You wouldn't ask your defender to go play, off, forward for all of a sudden. You're going to really focus on what people do really well and try to harness those moments where, an individual person brings a particular strength. And that's how, I like to collaborate and really invite people to participate in ways that I know are supported by their strengths.
Great. That's great. And maybe shifting gears a little bit, what do you feel, each of the panelists, are the top one or two challenges facing yourself as a supply chain leader these days? And Sarah, if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, I would say, probably not surprising, but there's just the volatility and the disruption and the pace of disruption is just uncharted these days, of we're a global supply chain and we have suppliers all over the world. We're shipping to 150 countries and territories around the world. And so to be able to flex and adapt and pivot, that's one of the ongoing challenges. So nothing new there. It's just, I would say, excellence comes down to the execution of it and how your teams pull together and the detailed workings of how you execute against that really make the difference for delivering excellent service.
Great. And what are the challenges that you're facing, Kathy, in the humanitarian aid?
So from the humanitarian space, like I could talk about those all day, but I'll focus on supply chain because we're a non-asset based organization, right? I don't own any warehouses. I don't own any trucks. All we have is the connections that we're able to make. So the challenges that our partners are facing also radiate up and are amplified up to us and through us. So I would just say, just the speed of change that's happening and trying to keep pace with that and understanding how is this affecting our partners? How is it affecting their ability to work with us and support us? What is that going to do to a community that has been affected by a crisis? I think that just staying on top of that, I don't know that this was part of the question, but one of the ways that we stay on top of that is we meet with all of our industry association partners every 2 weeks, right? And we just talk about what's happening, because if we're unable to stay informed, then there's no way we're going to be able to serve them effectively.
Excellent. And Kristi, what are the top one or two challenges for you?
I think they said it well. I mean, it's the pace of change, and particularly when you're thinking about innovation and automation. Our customers look to us as a 3PL to be on top of those trends and to be able to provide them with where the future is going, essentially, to look in our crystal ball and say, here's where you need to be. And the challenge is it's not one supply chain that we're doing that for, it's 200 different companies in different verticals who have different needs, and their consumers are acting differently. So the market change that's coming along with consumer mindsets, and that is very fickle, as most of you know, and then just the pace of technology change. And what I'm looking to implement today may be an emerging technology in 2 years, may be obsolete and dead. So it's a difficult balancing act to ensure that we are meeting our customers' needs from the market perspective, but also making sure they're sustainable long term and can maintain their market competitive advantage.
Great. Sarah, you kicked things off really well by mentioning volatility. So I was wondering, how do you even begin to do any sort of planning when things are changing constantly? Like, if you can give us some tips.
Yeah, I would say that, over the past few years, we've been better at two areas. What I'd say is scenario planning. And this takes the form of many different exercises or activities that you're doing. We've revived a lot of our business continuity test exercises at each of our manufacturing plants, and you make these really fun. You get everybody, you schedule these 4 months in advance so people make time on their calendar, and you say, we're going to tell you scenarios, we're not going to tell you ahead of time, but in the exercise we're going to tell you scenarios, and then we're going to sit people in the room together and we're going to talk about how we would respond in these different scenarios. We make it fun. We give people roles on top of their day jobs to say, okay, you're going to be the business continuity plan auditor. You're going to be looking at what's in our plan, what's not in our plan, and what needs to be added. So that's one of the ways that scenario planning can take shape. The other thing that I'm starting to see more is more collaboration across not just your supply chain, but also with our enterprise partners outside the supply chain. It's something that I've seen more and more, because it talks about overall company responsiveness when there are disruptions, and the faster you can coordinate with your colleagues in, let's say, the legal department or insurance and risk, the faster and more coordinated you're moving as an entire company.
Great. And Kathy, kind of leading into that, resilience and risk management are so important for dealing with humanitarian aid and disaster relief. How has your thinking about those issues changed over the years?
Yeah, so I would say in 2020, everyone's perspective on risk and resilience changed, right? Because suddenly we were all responsible for risk management for ourselves, for our companies, for our world, really. And so I would say that one of the things that I'm starting to see, although probably not enough, is thinking outside. You talk about thinking outside of the supply chain, but you're still thinking within your company, right? And you're thinking about within your supply chain, but for your customers. I think we should be thinking about it for our communities writ large, right? I think that, and we have seen some examples. We've been working with a group of grocers over the past 18 months or so. These are competitors, but we've been able to get them to sit down, not all in the same room, but on a Zoom, and talk about their common challenges. And to say, yeah, this is above and beyond us. If we want to keep feeding people when a disaster happens, these are what we're worried about. This is where we need help. And this is how we're going to have to, magic C word, collaborate. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's, that shift from internal more out to, broader community thinking. Again, we're not there yet. We're doing some incredible work with Jared Gensel and his team at the MIT Humanitarian Supply Chain Lab on this. But I'm hoping that's the direction we're headed for risk and resilience.
That's great, and that's a great challenge for all of us to start thinking that way. Kristi, one of the ways that you can make your organization more resilient is through innovation, but how do you get your organization to focus on innovation when they're so busy just trying to do their day-to-day jobs and fight daily fires?
I think it's about being intentional, as with most things. You're right. We do have operations that are spending their days moving the boxes, and that's what they've got to do. That's what they're charged with doing. But I'm fortunate to be in a large enough organization that we have a dedicated team, not only for engineering, but we have for innovation and engineering, but we also have dedicated site engineers that are responsible to take continuous improvement to a whole nother level, right? So it's the foundation, it's the core of who we are at Kenco to be continuously improving. But then we layer innovation on top of that. So we like to say that, if we're not able to bring innovation to the table that's practically applicable to that site, then we're not solving the problems that we need to be solving. And so I think one of the things that we continue to focus on and continue to level up our game is just driving that, not only intentionality, but structure and process and standardization, if you can be standardized with innovation. And really intentionally driving to continue to take our customer supply chains to the next level, which differentiates us in the market space.
Fantastic. So this award is meant to recognize outstanding women leaders. I thought it would be very appropriate to gain your thoughts on how we can develop and grow more women in leadership positions in the supply chain. And if you could talk a little bit about maybe what programs you've seen that work and what does not work. Sarah, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm happy to say that we have an employee resource group internally at ELC called Women in Supply Chain, part of the national organization, I think it is. And we're hitting our 10th year of that program and that ERG in place, so really celebrating that. And we're at a point where we have just about 900 members across the entire world as members of this. Yeah, that's so great. It's really nice to see that growth, and really that's there as a support system and a community to inspire leaders, but also help build confidence and gain exposure to different problems going on in the company, and finding people that you don't normally talk to, and getting a chance to just meet new people and talk about, what they work on and their perspectives of what needs to be changed or what our strengths are. So that's one of the avenues that I wanted to highlight.
Good. It's good to hear about success stories. Kathy, do you have thoughts about how to develop women in them?
I have thoughts about everything, Susan.
That's what I love about you.
So I could probably boil it down to one word in how do we get more women in supply chain How do we get more people in supply chain in general? I think that's purpose. I am very fortunate. I have the best job in the world in that I get to see the good that supply chains can do, right? And I think that we're living in this world, in this space where there's so much contention and there's so much negativity. And whenever we can connect the work that we do with the people who matter, and we have that mission and we have that purpose, I think that that's going to just it's going to make people want to be involved. So mission and purpose, I think, is, and I have a great way for y'all to do that. Send your folks to me to volunteer with Alan.
Kristi, what have you seen as good ways to develop women in the supply chain space?
Well, like Sarah, we have a women's ERG group at Kenco called Kenco Women Igniting Change. But I'll say it's to me, it's bigger than that. For those of us who've been in this industry for a while, I think it's our responsibility to give back. It's to go find those young leaders who are trying to build themselves up in this industry and mentor them and help them and give them visibility and cover, I like to say. So cover when they make the mistake, right? When you give them an opportunity and they make the mistake, but give them that visibility when they do well, right? Bring them to the forefront and make sure they're seen. There's plenty of other associations and organizations in supply chain that are doing great things with young leaders. I see John Paxton sitting here from MHI, and they do some amazing things with mentorship and young leaders. And so find that opportunity to give back, whether it's your local university, it's, wherever it is. I have 2 or 3 young ladies that I mentor, and I think it's so important for us to be their stepping stone to help them get there where the Gary Mayfields and the Scott Mayfields helped me get years ago. So it's time for us to give back.
Thank you so much. We do have a few minutes if there's any questions from the audience. My colleague Diane has a microphone. If you could just raise your hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Congratulations and well deserved. You've all talked about the importance of people and people's humanity. What are your thoughts about, as we move to this whole AI and agentic AI, how you're going to keep that focus?
Good question. Kristi, maybe you want to, as the innovation
I
leader.
knew that was coming. And I knew it would be John that came up with that. So listen, I'm not Pollyanna-ish. Automation is definitely going to replace some jobs. But I think where we try to target is those employees who are not long-term with us tenured, they're temp agent, they're rolling in and out. But also our goal is to augment the human as much as anything with AI. So how do we help the human make better decisions because they have more information, they're better informed, and they have all of the data at their fingertips, and that data is meaningful. It's not just a whole bunch of dashboards that mean nothing. It's really giving them insight to their daily, how do I do better today? How do I win more today than I won yesterday? So our focus and our goal with what we're doing with AI at Kenco is really to help our leadership on the floor, as well as all the way up to the executive suite, make better decisions faster and help our people do a better job every day of the week.
Sarah and Kathy, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I would say where we're at right now is, the people are providing the creativity of the use cases and dreaming up what types of problems we want to solve and we want to leverage. Where do we want to leverage, digital capabilities, AI, and so on. And that's very much an important and critical step in what humans can contribute, and the wealth of knowledge and experience that they bring to the table is very valuable for that.
Great. Kathy, any insights?
Yeah, I'll just add, I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of amazing professors who are, thinking about this for the future, and a lot of amazing practitioners. So I'm part of a group that's looking at AI for social good, and, how do we harness the things that we learn from industry and the ways that we're applying that to also help disaster survivors, right? I know that, hey, I had a robot, using AI serve me ice cream at John's conference earlier this year. So I'm excited about having robots with AI being able to serve disaster survivors and, keep humans out of harm's way. but using the best that's out there to do good.
Great. I think we have time for one more question if anyone has something that they would like to ask. Diane's making her way over.
Congratulations, ladies. This is exciting to hear your insights. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. I'm going to ask you to brag about yourself. What makes you outstanding in the supply chain? So good luck.
Who wants to take that first?
We tend to not, as women, put that out there. So I want just to leave this conversation with, like, what is it that I did that made me sit here in that chair now? So we can learn.
I really love that question because as women, we're taught not to brag about ourselves often. So, Kristi, let's go with you.
What is it with I get the audience questions first, right?
Sorry,
so they can listen and go, oh, let me say that differently. Yeah, I'm not good at bragging on myself. But I will say this. If I leave a legacy, it's because of how I treated the people that worked for me. But from an accomplishment perspective, let me say, I do feel I'm a pioneer. So I had the opportunity to take our company into the age of the internet as the IT leader and to pioneer a revenue generating IT department, to pioneer innovation at Kenco. We didn't have an innovation group. We didn't know what that meant. I was told, go build something. We don't know how to define it. We don't know what the methodology is. We don't know how to look at it. We don't know what it is. Go build it. And hopefully they will come. And they did. I built it and they came. And so 10 years later, here we are. So I think those are two of my greatest accomplishments from a actually done something valuable for the company perspective. But at the end of the day, what's really important is how the people around me and that worked for me come away feeling like they were valuable and they brought something to the table. And if I've accomplished that, that's the win.
Great. How about you, Kathy? What makes you outstanding?
Yes, you're right. It's a tough question. I think what I am most proud of is that I bring people together, people from so many different walks of life, people who compete with one another, people who have just different perspectives on the world. And we can all agree that dealing with disasters and helping people after a disaster is the right thing to do. And our approach may be different. Our vision for doing that may be different. But when we can get to that core truth, I think that's what I'm most proud of, is let's strip away all the BS and focus on what really matters. And that's making sure that people who have just experienced the worst day of their life get nourished, they get hydrated, and they get the care that they need, and they get that with dignity.
Sarah?
A few thoughts come to mind. One is, I'm not very, I think what I've learned to do better over time is to know when to have my head down and really focus on working and really delivering good results, and balancing that with speaking up and making sure other people at the company know what the accomplishments are, and to highlight my storytelling capabilities, to show my own personal diverse array of strengths that I bring to the company and the different experiences that I've been able to lead and deliver results. I'm not very vocal on social media. I choose not to spend a lot of time there because I'm really about enjoying the experience of my life in the physical world, and whether that be at work or outside of work. And I think that having that enjoyment factor is definitely part of what leads to my accomplishments, the team's accomplishments. I really enjoy celebrating my teams when we're working on a project. We've got a win. We've delivered a great KPI improvement for the company, and really just highlighting and showing, the company and our team, and just making our team shine, I think is really important. So those are just a couple of thoughts that immediately, come to mind.
That is such a great question. Thanks for asking that. I think we are just about out of time. So if you could join me in one last round of applause for our award winners and our wonderful sponsor. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, guys.